if they make those layoffs, it will be devastating for the public schools. I also want to call on our so-called political leaders to do something to avert these cuts. As a teacher with over a decade of experience in the Chicago Public Schools, as a parent of 2 CPS students, and as an elected representative of the 26,000 teachers, clinicians, and paraprofessionals that work every day and make the Chicago Public Schools run, I want to give you a little bit of a picture of what mass layoffs on that scale would mean in the schools. First of all, 140 to 150,000 students would lose their teacher. Second of all, the schools will lose almost 3 million instructional hours between now and the end of the school year alone. Thirdly, virtually every student will experience chaos, as every school in the city will need to be reprogrammed in the middle of the school year. What that would mean is that we would have to see the cancellation of specials like art and music. We would see teachers have to teach split grades, so that one teacher teaching 2 grades at the same time. And finally, we understand that the educational experience of our students would be gravely damaged in ways that go beyond just those immediately front-line layoffs. We would expect to see program closings. We would expect to see enrichment, sports, and other vital after-school programs be canceled and closed. CPS would further slash services to special education students, would slash students such as clinical services to students who are suffering with trauma, and in short, we face a looming crisis. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Governor, you must act to save our schools. You must tax the wealthy. You must properly fund public education. Support a millionaire's tax or progressive income tax. Pass the LaSalle Street tax, which is House Bill 106, legislation which is currently on the books, which has already been submitted, and would end a free ride to financial speculators in Chicago. Sue the banks, starting with Bank of America. Just that one financial institution made over $75 million of windfall profit from CPS on financial deals, which it itself understood had high risks, but it failed to disclose those risks to CPS. That same institution, if you include similar deals that it made with the city and state, and the fines and fees associated with those deals, has made windfall profits of over $275 million off our schools. Together with the other banks that have made similar deals, it's over $800 million. Sue them. Sue those banks, like Houston did, like Montgomery County did, and win some of those monies back. If CPS goes through with these cuts, we should expect the CTU to do everything in our power to fight for our schools and fight for the people who work in them. We might not be the ones in Springfield making the laws. We might not have the exalted positions of power in our society. But we have good voices, and we have good feet. And we will use them both to make sure that the public interests in the public schools are safeguarded in this time of financial crisis. We call on the mayor and the governor to do the right thing and secure revenue to fund our public schools. And I'll take questions.
Does that mean a strike?
It could, yes. I do not think that teachers caused this financial mess. It's been brewing for a while, but you can't expect us to sit by and watch the critical institution in our society, like the public schools, be bled dry, be eviscerated, be devastated by cuts. We will react to that in the strongest way that we can.
How about a timeline for that? Because I think you had said before you're talking towards, what was it, second semester?
That's
Be more
correct.
specific, because you said layoffs, Thanksgiving.
Well, I think the layoff notices would go out as early as Thanksgiving, and that's just based on something that Claypool has said. But that would be fairly common. But the layoffs themselves would be taking effect at the I assume, at the beginning of the second semester, which is on towards the end of January, early February.
So the strike would also be around that time, or would you be?
I don't know exactly what timeline a potential work action would be, but I know that we will have the strongest reaction that we can muster. And you also have to think about what we'll do in public, and the actions that we'll take on the streets and in public and in the public sphere and in the public discourse when you're looking at school cuts that are this devastating.
How accurate is that 5,000 layoff number? Is that plausible? I mean, is that?
I don't know. If it wasn't somewhat plausible, we wouldn't be standing here in front of you.
Is this derailing talks, ongoing talks?
Talks are ongoing, but it's pretty hard to settle a contract when there's this much uncertainty about the future. Negotiations don't like uncertainty. We don't like it. Our members don't like it. It's hard to plan a career, lessons, think about doing all the things you need to do to make school run when you're talking about a financial cliff that's that steep.
So before you talk about a strike, because we understand that in negotiations, everybody has to come together,
That's
right?
right.
How much are you willing to give up as far as what you're asking for and what the city is offering to prevent this from going any farther?
The first thing we'd like to see from the district is some good faith in their part, which is that if you're in a hole, stop digging. That's a good way to start. So the district, for example, is getting ready to vote on as many as 20 new charter school proposals. So at the same time they've cut $200 million out of special ed and their basic education program. They're talking about mass layoffs. They continue to vote on opening new publicly funded but privately run schools. So, you know, the teachers union has already said we'd be willing to look at a pay freeze if the district would show good faith about doing things like stop opening charter schools and new privately funded schools. Do things that would actually cut back on expensive testing. It's bad for the education of students. It's bad for our members. It's expensive. Stop doing that. Do some things in good faith that show that you're willing to try to support public education. Also, the top political leadership of the district is tied to the hip to the top political leadership of this city. You know, you have right now a list of taxes, fines, and fees that hit working class Chicagoans so hard, it's going to knock the breath out of us. And I include our members in that. Teachers have lived in this city as a requirement of employment since 1996. I mean, you're talking, I mean, the list is dizzying. It's, let's see if I can get it. You know, it's garbage, it is sodas, it's e-cigarettes, it's taxis, it's haircuts. I mean, you start ticking off the things that they're talking about taxing right now, it's going to become impossible for a working class person to live in the city. That's going to affect all of our members. I ask you, why can't the financial titans on the South Street, why can't the bankers that have profited hundreds of millions off bad financial deals, why can't they pay some as well? And when we see that, I mean, the mayor comes to us and says, put skin in the game, you guys make sacrifice. We feel like we make a sacrifice every day to work in schools, that sometimes we feel like we're holding them together with paper clips and duct tape, and will. But we'll go further, we'll make more sacrifices. But his rich friends and constituency has to make sacrifices too.
Where are the negotiations? What are the sticking points? And still valuations,
I mean, right now, we're stuck far apart on a whole bunch of issues.
such as?
You know, such as the fact that they still want a 3-year contract with over 5% pay cuts in it, with, you know, no lanes and steps, with a big increase in health insurance, with taking out a pension pickup, and actually seeing teachers' pay go down over that time. We're nowhere on reducing testing. We're nowhere on safeguards for class sizes. We're nowhere on the things that people in the schools really want to see, higher quality education. It's just cuts, it's efficiencies, it's all going in the wrong direction.
Is the new law firm helping at all?
I'm sorry?
The new law firm hired by the board, are they helping?
You know, they're billing, I'm sure that.
Do you have any comment on just the fact that tomorrow the mayor is going to propose using so much of the city's taxing capacity in terms of the property tax for something other than schools?
Yeah, I've noticed that of the number of $450 to $500 million has been thrown around, less than a tenth of the tax increase goes to the schools. And you know, the closest I can tell, that's just not a priority in terms of what the mayor is talking about with all these tax increases. And I find it mind-boggling. I think that it's ignoring what is the most dire crisis that we face right now in the city.
This $45 million tax levy that they just announced, is that misdirected?
The $45 million tax levy they just announced is a capital improvement tax. Frankly, it's a tax law that's been in the books for 20 years. This city has been building a lot of new schools over the last 20 years. Selective enrollment schools, charter schools, new magnet schools, a series of upgrades of schools, and they've done all of it with borrowing, which they make the debt service on that borrowing come out of the operating budget. This is a tax levy that should have been done a long time ago. Now, I just want to point out that it's less than 1/10 of the total tax bill they're getting ready to put on the city.
The mayor's office and CPS, they say that this is a Springfield issue. Springfield has to act. Your reaction to that they keep saying our hands are tied, we just don't have the money.
They do keep saying that, and yet that comes off as a hollow claim when take something like the mayor did have control over, like suing the banks or filing an arbitration against the banks. They didn't lift a finger on that. The mayor for years has been saying, well, we can't touch TIF money, right? Well, now it turns out they are touching TIF money. Still don't think they're touching TIF money the way they need to be. Let's also not forget the mayor is a political figure, a spokesperson. A man who always makes a big case out of the fact that he's got friends in high places. Well, show some vision, show some leadership, and call for the wealthy to pay their fair share. I mean, we have Chicago, one of the biggest financial markets in this country. The precise layer of people in our society that have done the best since the financial crash in 2008. So our society bailed them out, and we watched the financial markets go from 8,000 to 16,000. Fortunes were made, and if you don't believe me, go look around downtown. There's a building boom on. And yet, the mayor would have us believe that it will ruin the city economically to ask those folks that currently pay nothing to pay a small fee on making financial transactions. The mayor should show some financial leadership, some vision on these things. Where was the mayor calling for a progressive income tax when we had a Democratic leadership in the state? So he's become much braver about calling out for new revenue now that he knows he won't get it because there's a Republican in power. It rings hollow. You guys got to show some leadership and call for things that are real solutions.